My name is Rebecca Thompson, and at 34, I stand in my Denver penthouse looking out at the Rocky Mountains, still amazed at how far I've come. As a senior software architect at one of Colorado's fastest-growing tech companies, I earn more in a month than my family saw in a year growing up. The floor-to-ceiling windows of my office reflect a woman I sometimes don't recognize. Confident, successful, independent. But no amount of success can completely heal the wound left when I was 10 years old. The day my mother chose her affair partner and cocaine addiction over her daughter. If you've ever had a parent abandon you, only to return when you found success, I want you to know you're not alone. Please share your story in the comments below. It helps to know others understand this unique pain. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more real stories of family betrayal and triumph. Growing up in small-town Kansas, in a place called Millbrook with barely 3,000 people, my childhood ended on a humid Tuesday in July. I remember every detail: the smell of my dad's burned coffee, the sound of the ceiling fan clicking with each rotation, the way the morning light caught the dust particles floating through our cramped living room. My mother, Patricia Lawson, had been acting strange for months. Late nights that turned into not coming home at all. The sweet smell on her clothes that I later learned was wine mixed with something chemical. The way her hands shook when she thought no one was looking. Dad tried to shield me from it. Thomas Thompson was a good man, a mechanic who ran a small auto repair shop downtown. His hands were permanently stained with motor oil, his back bent from years of leaning over engines, but his smile was always warm when he looked at me. He'd make excuses for Mom. She was tired, she was stressed, she was finding herself. Even at 10, I knew he was lying to protect me. The morning she left, she didn't even pack properly. I watched from the stairs as she threw random clothes into a garbage bag, her movements frantic and disconnected. Her boyfriend Derek waited in his Camaro outside, engine running, music blasting. She saw me watching, and for a moment our eyes met. I thought she'd say something, anything. Instead, she looked away, grabbed her bag, and walked out. The screen door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through my chest. Dad found out later she'd drained their joint savings. $8,000 meant for a new lift for his shop. She'd also maxed out 3 credit cards in his name and stolen his father's watch, a family heirloom worth more in sentiment than money. The divorce papers came a month later, served at the shop in front of his employees. I'll never forget the way his shoulders sagged, like someone had added invisible weights to them. She moved to Vegas with Derek, diving headfirst into a lifestyle funded by his drug dealing. We heard rumors through the small-town grapevine. Patricia was partying, Patricia was in trouble, Patricia had another kid. That last one stung the most. She'd replaced me with my half-brother, Jason Kerr, born 11 months after she left. She could start fresh with him, without the baggage of her old life. The shop barely survived. Dad worked 18-hour days, taking any job that came in. Oil changes, transmission rebuilds, even fixing lawnmowers when things got desperate. I'd sit in the corner of the shop after school, doing homework on a makeshift desk made from an old door and 2 sawhorses. The smell of motor oil became my perfume. The sound of impact wrenches my lullaby. By 12, I knew we needed more income. I started small, babysitting for $3 an hour, walking dogs for neighbors, cleaning houses on weekends. Mrs. Anderson down the street taught me to sew. And I'd alter clothes for people, letting out hems and taking in waist for $5 apiece. Every penny went into a jar on the kitchen counter, our emergency fund that usually emptied by month's end. At 14, I lied about my age and got a job at the local grocery store, stocking shelves from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. before school. The manager, Mr. Curtis, knew I was underage but looked the other way. "You're a hard worker, Rebecca," he'd say, slipping an extra $20 into my pay envelope. "Don't let anyone tell you different." School became my sanctuary and my ticket out. I excelled at mathematics and computer science, spending lunch breaks in the computer lab teaching myself programming from library books. Mrs. Chen, my AP computer science teacher, saw my potential. She'd stay after school, teaching me advanced concepts, pushing me to enter competitions. "You have a gift," she'd say. "Don't waste it." I won a state programming competition at 16, which came with a $5,000 scholarship. The local newspaper ran a story with a picture of Dad and me, him in his oil-stained coveralls, me holding an oversized check. That night, we splurged on pizza from Antonio's, and Dad cried. "Your mom doesn't know what she's missing," he said, his voice thick with pride and sadness. Senior year, I applied to every scholarship I could find. Essay contests, STEM programs, minority initiatives, being one of the few females in computer science counted. Corporate sponsorships. I wrote until my fingers cramped, edited until my eyes burned. The acceptance letter from Colorado State University came with a full ride. Tuition, room, board, even a stipend for books. Dad framed the letter and hung it in the shop, telling every customer about his daughter, the future software engineer. But even with everything covered, college was brutal. I worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 3.9 GPA. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I tutored struggling students in calculus and programming, charging $25 an hour. Tuesday and Thursday nights, I worked at a call center doing technical support, troubleshooting internet issues until 2 a.m. Weekends, I did freelance coding projects, building websites for small businesses. My dorm room was a cramped single that I'd chosen specifically because it was the cheapest option. While other students decorated with posters and string lights, my walls were covered with programming syntax guides and scholarship deadlines. I survived on bulk rice, beans, and whatever was on sale at the discount grocery store. When my laptop died junior year, I spent 3 months using the library computers, camping out from open to close to complete my projects. The isolation was crushing. While classmates went to parties and spring break trips, I worked. While they dated and made memories, I coded. I told myself it was temporary, that sacrifice now meant success later. But there were nights I'd sit in that empty dorm room listening to laughter from down the hall and wonder if I was missing out on being young. My breakthrough came senior year. Professor Martinez recommended me for an internship at Technova, a Denver startup developing AI-driven analytics software. The interview was brutal. 5 hours of coding challenges, system design questions, and behavioral assessments. When they offered me the position with a 30-hour wage, I cried in the bathroom afterward. That internship changed everything. I threw myself into the work, arriving first, leaving last, volunteering for every project. My supervisor, Janet Walsh, became my mentor. "You remind me of myself," she said one evening as we debugged code. Hungry, determined, a little too hard on yourself. She taught me not just coding, but how to navigate corporate politics, how to advocate for myself, how to turn technical skills into leadership opportunities. They offered me a full-time position before graduation, $85,000 starting salary with stock options. It was more money than I'd ever imagined. The first thing I did was call Dad. He was working under a car when I told him, and I heard him drop his wrench, heard it clatter on the concrete. "Say that number again," he whispered. When I did, he laughed. A sound of pure joy I hadn't heard since before Mom left. I moved to Denver, renting a studio apartment in Capitol Hill. It was small, but it was mine. No roommates, no sharing, just my space. I bought real furniture, not thrift store finds. I stocked my refrigerator with fresh vegetables and actual meat. I bought clothes that weren't from clearance racks. Each purchase felt like a tiny rebellion against my past. Work consumed me in the best way. I specialized in machine learning algorithms, developing predictive models that helped companies optimize their operations. Within 2 years, I was promoted to senior developer. By year 4, I was a team lead. At 30, I became the youngest senior software architect in the company's history, managing projects worth millions, leading teams of brilliant engineers who looked to me for guidance. My salary grew with each promotion, $85,000 to $110,000 to $140,000 to my current $175,000, plus bonuses and stock, options that pushed my total compensation over $200,000. The girl who'd counted pennies for gas money now had investment portfolios and a financial advisor. With my success, Dad became my priority. I started sending him $1,000 monthly, telling him it was for the shop, but knowing he needed it for everything. I paid off the credit cards Mom had destroyed his credit with. I bought him a new truck when his ancient Ford finally died. I hired a part-time mechanic so he could take Sundays off for the first time in 20 years. "You don't need to do this," he'd protest during our weekly calls. "You gave up everything for me," I'd respond. "Let me give something back." I renovated his house, new roof, new HVAC, actual insulation. I set up a retirement account in his name, contributing monthly. When he needed knee surgery from years of kneeling on concrete, I covered what insurance wouldn't. He was my hero, my rock, the parent who stayed. Mom, though Mom was a ghost who haunted through occasional Facebook stalking and gossip from Millbrook relatives. I knew she'd married Derek, that they'd divorced 5 years later, that Jason had problems at school, that she'd been arrested twice for possession, that she was living in a trailer park outside Vegas, working at a casino buffet. Each update was a mix of vindication and sadness. Part of me, the little girl on the stairs, still wanted her to become someone worth missing. The birthday cards came every year. Always 2 days late, always generic Hallmark messages with her signature and nothing else. I kept them in a shoebox, not sure why. Maybe as evidence that she remembered I existed, even if just barely. Then came that Thursday evening in October. I was in my penthouse. Yes, I'd bought a penthouse. A 2-bedroom corner unit with mountain views that cost more than Dad's house, working on a presentation when the doorman called. "Ms. Thompson, there's a Patricia Lawson here claiming to be your mother. Should I send her up?" My blood chilled. 24 years of absence, and she just appeared. I almost said no, but curiosity won. "Send her up." The woman at my door looked like a faded photocopy of my mother. Same bone structure, but skin weathered by hard living. Same green eyes, but dulled by disappointment. She'd dyed her gray hair an unnatural black, and her clothes were carefully chosen to look more expensive than they were. Knockoff designer jeans, a fake Louis Vuitton bag, costume jewelry trying to pass as real. Beside her stood a young man who had to be Jason, 23 years old, tall and lanky, with Derek's sharp features and Mom's green eyes. He didn't look up from his phone, thumbs flying over the screen, AirPods firmly in place. "Rebecca, sweetheart," Mom said, voice artificially warm, arms opening for an embrace. I stepped back. It's been 24 years. "What do you want?" Her arms dropped, and for a second, I saw genuine hurt flash across her face. Then the mask returned. Can't a mother visit her daughter? I let them in against my better judgment, watching Mom's eyes catalog everything. The exposed brick walls, the professional kitchen, the original artwork, the baby grand piano I was teaching myself to play. Jason collapsed onto my Italian leather sectional, still on his phone, feet up on my glass coffee table without asking. "Nice place," he muttered, not looking up. Bit much for one person, though. Compensating for something? The disrespect was immediate and stunning. This stranger, this replacement child, felt entitled to judge my home, my success, my life. Mom settled into the chair across from me, posture perfect, like she was at a job interview. "You've done well for yourself," she said, gesturing around. "I always knew you were special." "You left when I was 10, I said flatly. "You don't know anything about me." She flinched but recovered. "I've kept tabs. I know you're some big shot at a tech company, making serious money." Her voice lingered on that last part, and I knew we'd reached the real reason for her visit. "How did you find me?" "Oh, social media, Google. You're not hard to find when you're successful." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Your father mentioned you were doing well when I called about finalizing some old paperwork." Dad hadn't mentioned any call, which meant she was lying already. "What do you want, Patricia?" I used her first name deliberately, watching her flinch. She launched into a sob story, voice trembling with practiced emotion. Derek had left her with nothing. She'd been struggling, working minimum wage, barely surviving. Jason was brilliant, so smart, so talented, but college was expensive. He'd gotten into UNLV for business, but tuition was $40,000 a year. Plus living expenses, books, a car for commuting. "We need help," she said, leaning forward. "Just $5,000 a month to get us through. And maybe a lump sum for Jason's first year. $5,000 a month to get us through. And maybe a lump sum for Jason's first year." "50,000 should cover it," I laughed. I couldn't help it. The audacity was breathtaking. Jason looked up then, pulling out one AirPod. "What's so funny?" "You're loaded. $5,000 is nothing to you." "You don't know anything about my finances," I said. "Mom Googled you," he shrugged. "Senior software architect at Technova. That's like what, $250,000 a year? Plus you own this place. You can afford it. The casual invasion of privacy, the entitled calculation of my worth, the assumption that my success meant I owed them. It was all so perfectly narcissistic. "I worked for everything I have," I said, voice steady. "While you were playing video games, I was working 3 jobs. While Patricia was getting high with Derek, Dad and I were choosing between electricity and groceries." Mom's face hardened. "Don't be dramatic. I had my struggles too." "Your struggles were your choices," I shot back. Jason scoffed. "Whatever. Mom said you'd be difficult. Probably got daddy issues, living alone in this museum." He looked around dismissively. All this money and no life. Sad. The cruelty was breathtaking. This kid who'd never worked a day in his life, who'd been raised on my mother's lies and excuses, felt entitled to judge me. Get out, I said quietly. Rebecca, please, Mom started, but I cut her off. You stole Dad's savings. You destroyed his credit. You left us with nothing. And now you want me to fund your life? Get out. Jason stood, shoving his phone in his pocket. Told you she was a bitch, he said to Mom. Probably why she's alone. Mom grabbed her fake purse, standing slowly. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown, she said. Room 412. When you come to your senses and remember what family means, you can find me there. Family? I laughed bitterly. You don't know what that word means, she paused at the door. I'm your mother. That has to count for something. It counted when I was 10, crying myself to sleep. It counted when I was 14, working illegally to help Dad pay rent. It counted when I graduated college and you didn't even send a card. It doesn't count now. They left, but I knew they'd be back. People like them don't give up when they smell money. The next morning, I met them at a coffee shop in Lodo, hoping public space would keep things civil. Mom had texted me 6 times overnight, alternating between guilt trips and vague threats about family responsibilities. I brought my laptop, recording app running, wanting evidence of whatever came next. They were already there. Mom sipping a latte that probably cost more than she wanted to spend. Jason slouched in his chair, baseball cap pulled low, scrolling through what looked like Instagram. Thank you for coming, Mom said, voice honeyed. I knew you'd see reason. I sat down, keeping my bag in my lap, phone positioned to record. I came to hear what you really want. She launched into a new version of her story. This time, Dad had been abusive, controlling, had turned me against her. She'd wanted to visit, to call, but he'd threatened her. The lies flowed so smoothly I almost admired the performance. Your father poisoned you against me, she said, tears actually forming in her eyes. I tried to be part of your life, but he made it impossible. I have every birthday card you sent, I said calmly. 18 cards in 24 years. All generic, all late, all with just your signature. Dad begged you to call. You chose not to. Jason looked up from his phone. She was going through stuff. You don't understand what she sacrificed. Sacrificed? My voice rose slightly. She sacrificed us for Derek and cocaine. Mom slammed her hand on the table, making the coffee cups jump. Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what my life was like. I know you chose it, I said. Every day you chose it. She leaned back, composing herself, switching tactics. Fine, let's talk practical. Jason needs college funding. You can afford it. Consider it an investment in your brother's future. He's not my brother, I said. He's a stranger who's done nothing but insult me since we met. Jason laughed. God, you're uptight. No wonder you're single. Who'd want to deal with this? His casual cruelty kept stunning me. You don't know anything about my life? I know enough, he shrugged. Rich, alone, probably have like 6 cats. Classic spinster. Mom didn't correct him, just sipped her latte, watching me over the rim. Here's what I know, I said, pulling out my phone. You hacked into Dad's email 2 months ago. You've been gathering information about me, my job, my finances. That's illegal. Mom's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a software architect, I said. I traced the IP addresses. You logged into his account from a Vegas library computer. You forwarded emails about my promotion to yourself. Jason straightened up, suddenly interested. So what? It's public information. Unauthorized access to someone's email is a federal crime, I said. Identity theft, wire fraud, depending on what else you did. Mom's mask finally cracked. You'd report your own mother? The woman who gave birth to me? In a heartbeat. My mother? Dad's the only parent I have. The conversation devolved from there. Mom accused me of being heartless, selfish, corrupted by money. Jason called me names I won't repeat. His vocabulary surprisingly creative for someone who seemed barely literate. Other customers stared as voices rose. Finally, Mom stood, gathering her things. You're making a mistake, Rebecca. Family is everything. You're right, I said. That's why I choose mine carefully. She stormed out, Jason trailing behind, but not before he knocked over my coffee, spilling it across the table. Oops, he said, smirking. 2 days later, they showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when our receptionist interrupted. Rebecca, your mother and brother are in the lobby. They say it's an emergency. My blood ran cold. I excused myself, walking quickly to the lobby. They were there, Mom talking animatedly to anyone who'd listen, Jason filming everything on his phone. There she is, Mom announced loudly. My successful daughter who won't help her family. My colleagues stared. My boss, David Kim, emerged from his office, concern on his face. Is everything all right? He asked. My estranged mother, I said quietly. I'll handle it. I approached them, keeping my voice low. You need to leave, now. Not until you help us, Mom said loudly. Everyone should know what kind of person you are. Abandoning family. Jason kept filming, narrating. This is Rebecca Thompson, makes $200K a year but won't help her mom pay rent. Security arrived then, 2 guards flanking them. Ma'am, sir, you need to leave. Mom made a scene, crying about heartless daughters and family values. Jason shouted about corporate greed and privilege. They were escorted out, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen it. David called me into his office afterward. Are you okay? I explained the situation, the abandonment, the sudden reappearance, the demands for money. He listened, nodding. Take the rest of the day, he said. And Rebecca, consider getting a restraining order. This won't end well otherwise. That evening, I found them in my apartment. I don't know how they got in. Maybe they followed another resident through the security door. Maybe they convinced the building manager they were family visiting. But when I opened my door, they were inside. Jason at my desk with my laptop open, Mom going through papers in my filing cabinet. What the hell are you doing? I shouted. Jason didn't even look up. Trying to transfer some money. You made it really hard with all this 2-factor authentication stuff. The casualness of it, the admitted attempted theft, the complete violation of my space, I felt something snap inside me. I'm calling the police, I said, pulling out my phone. Mom rushed over, trying to grab it. Don't be ridiculous. We're family. No, I said, dialing 911. You're criminals. She actually tried to wrestle the phone from me. Jason finally looked up, seeing the struggle. Mom, let's go, he said, suddenly nervous. This isn't worth it. Not without what we came for, she snarled, still grabbing for my phone. 1, what's your emergency? Breaking and entering, I said loudly. 1547 17th Street, Penthouse B, 2 intruders in my apartment. Mom let go, stepping back. You're really doing this? You broke into my home, I said. You tried to steal from me. Yes, I'm really doing this, they ran. By the time police arrived, they were gone. But I had everything documented. The forced entry, the attempted access to my computer, the scattered papers. I filed a report and immediately called a lawyer. Sarah Martinez was recommended by a colleague, a former prosecutor who specialized in harassment and stalking cases. She reviewed my evidence, the recorded conversations, the security footage from my building, the police report, the digital trail of their attempts to access my accounts. This is clear-cut harassment and attempted theft, she said. We can get a restraining order immediately. The court hearing was a week later. Mom and Jason didn't show up, but it didn't matter. The judge reviewed the evidence and granted a permanent restraining order. They were barred from contacting me, coming within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace. I thought it was over. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, my bank called. Someone had tried to wire $50,000 from my savings to an account in Vegas. The transaction was blocked thanks to security protocols, but the attempt was traced to a computer using stolen credentials from a data breach. Mom had bought my information on the dark web. Trying one last desperate grab, I pressed charges. With Sarah's help and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, we built a case. Mom was arrested 3 months later, charged with wire fraud, identity theft, and violating the restraining order. Jason was charged as an accomplice. The trial was brutal. Mom painted herself as a desperate mother trying to reconnect. Jason claimed I'd promised to help, then reneged. But the evidence was overwhelming, the digital trail, the recordings, the witnesses from my office. Mom got 18 months in federal prison and 5 years probation. Jason got 6 months in community service. During sentencing, Mom screamed that I'd ruined her life, that I was no daughter of hers. The words that would have destroyed 10-year-old me bounced off like rain. Dad flew in for the trial, the first time he'd been on a plane. He sat beside me every day, his presence a quiet strength. I'm sorry, he whispered during Mom's testimony. Sorry you have to go through this. It's not your fault, I told him. It never was. After the trial, I needed help processing everything. Dr. Jennifer Park came highly recommended, a therapist specializing in family trauma and abandonment issues. Our sessions were brutal, excavating years of buried pain. "You've been in survival mode since you were 10, she said during our third session. Always working, always proving yourself, never feeling safe enough to just exist." She was right. My success was armor, my achievements a wall against vulnerability. But walls that keep pain out also keep joy from getting in. We worked on boundaries, on understanding that Mom's abandonment wasn't about my worth, but her own brokenness. We unpacked my workaholic tendencies, my fear of depending on anyone, my inability to trust that people would stay. "Your mother leaving wasn't your fault," Dr. Park said one day, and I broke down completely. 24 years of telling myself that, but hearing it from someone else, believing it, that was different. Slowly, I started healing. I joined a support group for adults with addicted parents. Hearing other stories, sharing mine, realizing I wasn't alone, it was transformative. I made friends there, people who understood the particular grief of losing a parent who was still alive. I also started dating. Marcus, a financial advisor I met at a conference, was patient with my walls, gentle with my fears. He understood when I needed space, celebrated my successes without feeling threatened. 6 months in, when he said, "I love you," I actually believed him. A year later, when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was small. Dad, Marcus's family, our closest friends. Dad walked me down the aisle, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Your mom doesn't know what she missed," he whispered before giving me away. "You became extraordinary despite her, not because of her." With therapy and support, I channeled my pain into purpose. I established the Thompson Foundation, a nonprofit providing scholarships and mentorship to children from broken homes. We fund college applications, SAT prep, even basic necessities like laptops and professional clothes for interviews. The first scholarship recipient, Maria, was 17, working 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Her mother was in prison, her father absent. Watching her get accepted to MIT with full funding, seeing her cry with joy, it healed something in me. My team at Technova helped build the foundation's website and application system. David, my boss, joined the board. Janet, my old mentor, donated the first $100,000. Even Marcus's firm provided pro bono financial planning. Dad became our unofficial spokesperson, sharing our story with local media. "My daughter took pain and turned it into purpose," he'd say, pride radiating from every word. "She's proof that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going." The foundation grew. Corporate sponsors joined. We expanded from Colorado to Kansas, then nationally. 5 years later, we'd helped over 500 students escape poverty through education. Each success story was a small victory against my own past. Mom served her full sentence, getting out on a Tuesday in March. She sent one letter, asking for forgiveness, claiming she'd changed. I didn't respond. Forgiveness was for me, not her, and I'd already given myself that gift. I heard through distant relatives that she moved to Florida, living with a sister who barely tolerated her. Jason drifted between jobs, his entitled attitude making him unemployable. Sometimes I wonder what might have been if she'd stayed, if she'd chosen us over her addictions. But that way lies madness. She made her choices, I made mine. The difference is, I chose to build rather than destroy. Dad retired last year, finally closing the shop after 40 years. I bought him a condo near me in Denver, where he spends his days reading, taking photography classes, living the life he'd postponed for decades. We have dinner every Sunday, sometimes just us, sometimes with Marcus and our friends. He's met Maria and our other scholarship recipients, beaming as they call him Grandpa Tom. My chosen family, Marcus, Dad, my friends, my colleagues, my therapy group, they've shown me what love actually looks like. It's not blood or obligation or guilt. It's choosing to show up day after day. It's respect and boundaries and mutual support. It's celebrating successes and grieving losses together. To anyone reading this who's faced family betrayal, who's been told they owe toxic relatives their success, you don't. Blood doesn't entitle anyone to your money, your energy, or your peace. You have the right to protect what you've built, to choose who deserves access to your life. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's who you choose and who chooses you back. It's the people who saw you at your lowest and stayed. It's the ones who celebrate your victories without calculating what they can gain from them. My name is Rebecca Thompson. I'm 34 years old, married to a man who loves me, daughter to a father who stayed, founder of a nonprofit that changes lives. I built my success from nothing, and I protect it fiercely. Not because I'm selfish, but because I know what it costs to create it. To everyone who's been through something similar, who's had to choose between toxic family and their own well-being, you made the right choice. You are enough just as you are. Your success is yours. You don't owe it to anyone who didn't help you build it. Thank you for reading my story. Please share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you had to cut off family members who only wanted your money? How did you handle it? Your stories help others know they're not alone. And please, subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell to hear more real stories of family drama, betrayal, and ultimately, triumph. Together, we can redefine what family really means. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to the life you built while they were absent. Protect your peace, honor your journey, and never apologize for choosing yourself.